Clint and Sean on Sackheads Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
And we're back here on the Sackheads Radio Show, 347-205-9399.
Why does the NSA keep jamming us?
Well, you know, without Sacco here, we all know I'm an idiot and I have to run the board. I just keep hitting buttons and I don't know what does anything. So, you know, I want to talk a little bit. I don't want to go ad nauseum in depth like everyone else has, but I want to discuss this whole Bridgegate with Chris Christie. Oh. And I know we even hate talking about him, but is this not exactly what mainstream media wanted? This was huge because let's face it, they know Christie's running for president for the Republicans, whether he is a Republican or not, that's yet to be determined. And they know that he's probably going to win a lot of moderates and a lot of independents to a point. So they deem him the biggest threat in 2016 to Hillary. Because they've all...
Whoa. Listen, he's working on his weight. I don't think calling him the biggest threat and making some backhanded comment about his weight is appropriate for a sackhead. So let's just keep it professional here, okay?
All right.
Let's not call him the biggest threat. I don't want our larger listeners to, you know, start running rampant on us. Not that they would run anywhere, but you know what I mean.
Cock in the chat room said, he said close the fridge, not the bridge.
Chris Christie cream is...
So all of a sudden, if you've turned on mainstream media at all, and unfortunately we have to because that's part of our job, and all of a sudden Obamacare is like it's never even happened. You don't hear anything about it. You don't hear about how they were so short of what they've needed and all the problems. You barely heard that they fired the original web company and hired a new one and spent billions upon billions more, which, by the way, if you have a chance, go on YouTube, find the Jimmy Kimmel did a new commercial for Obamacare and the fixing the website. That's absolutely hysterical. But this is, it has been played right into the hands of the president of Hillary Clinton. In the
you say President Hillary Clinton?
I think it's going to happen, sadly. I really do. I don't see anyone, we can talk about that for a minute. I don't see anyone in the party right now who has expressed interest in running that's going to beat her.
I do.
Who?
Sackhead Clint.
Yeah, but you're going in 2015. By the way, we have to get your presidential run underway. We have to have a staff meeting on that. But you watch
bumper
this,
stickers.
and now all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're going to do an investigation on him for the misuse of funds for Hurricane Sandy, which, by the way, and I hate defending this guy because I'm no fan, we've said that before. But how many other governors ever got investigated for misuse of emergency funds? Even, you see that at all in New Orleans? And there was terrible misuse of funds. You know, I don't recall, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't recall hearing that come up. You know, this is just an amazing narrative being pushed forward. Again, we go back to crony politics like we talked about a little bit earlier in the show. When they need a deflection, they will chop down the biggest tree in the forest. Oh, there I said it again.
What is wrong with you?
At least I called him a tree this time.
You did.
But they will go to no end to deflect and destroy a person over something so meaningful, or meaningless rather. The bridge closure thing was not as big as a deal as everyone is making out to be.
Right.
Well, was it kind of a lousy thing to do considering, you know, the election? Yeah, probably. He probably should not have done that. Is there really hardline proof that he said close the bridge or had knowledge? No. Did he probably have knowledge? Yeah.
Okay, MSNBC has devoted hours to a freaking road closure. Hours. How much have they done on Benghazi?
I know, it's
seconds.
There is less coverage when those idiots from Occupy Wall Street were planning to blow up the bridge in Cleveland than there is on a bridge closure by a governor. He didn't eat the bridge. He didn't break the bridge.
He didn't blow it up.
He didn't do anything of the sort. It was a couple cones. in mainstream media.
And maybe a flare.
It was a couple cones.
You know what? Maybe that
cones,
flare.
Maybe a flare.
Maybe that flare released some phosphorus, some toxic fume into the air, and the EPA, because it was over a waterway and into the air, needs to address this.
Maybe that flare rolled all the way down to West Virginia and caused the chemical leak.
But you know what? I'm thinking about this. He closed a bridge, which would actually help abate traffic and decrease pollution.
Oh, so he was
over a waterway.
I didn't realize what an environmentalist Chris Christie
He
was.
is a huge environmentalist, and that's not any knock about the big guy. It's
huge environmentalist.
Huge environmentalist.
One of the biggest environmentalists.
I can't think of another environmentalist as big as him. Can you?
Hey, I'm fat. I can make weight jokes. You can't. You're actually starting to hurt my feelings now.
I wasn't making any weight jokes. That had nothing to do with weight. Not like your jokes were cruel and hurtful.
Yours were just happy shenanigans. Evil shenanigans. But at what point is it enough? At what point do we realize that mainstream media...
Well, are we talking about him and eating again? At what point is it enough? Listen, we bounce back and forth. I'm asking an honest question here. You
man. No, but and people keep turning on, and nobody at all. And you look at, like you said, how much coverage this has gotten compared to the Benghazi release. Those documents are huge, and I know it's a lot of information we knew. Mm-hmm. But just the fact that there it is in print, in writing, it's entered into the congressional record. It is now part of a humongous attack in which 4 Americans died. And you saw a little blip. I think it was on the runner. Krispy Kreme goes out and eats an ice cream cone, then turns it upside down and puts it in the middle of the road. And you would have thought we were attacked by Venezuela. Like, it is absolutely insane to me, the stuff that they will focus on and the stuff that they will ignore.
Why was I attacked by Venezuela?
It's the first country I can think of.
Think of something cool, like you were attacked by the Cayman Islands. That would be cool, right? You were attacked by you were attacked
Canadian
by
bacon.
Yeah,
the Canadians invaded.
You were attacked by Royal Caribbean's private island. You were attacked by Disney
private island.
Right. That would be cool.
Oh man. So that, I mean, like I said, I didn't want to sit there and beat a dead horse on that, but folks, seriously, start demanding better from them. Demand better. Turn them off. Do something. Tell your friends not to listen to them because they suck.
What, MSNBC?
MSNBC, CNN, Headline News. I'd love to see what the Young Turks or those idiots over there did.
Al Jazeera.
Yeah, Chris Matthews. Al Jazeera America.
Is Chris Matthews still around?
I think he does a podcast.
Have you ever seen Chris Matthews and Chris Christie in the same room together?
Yes.
When?
It could have been a mirror, though. You don't know. No, I think he interviewed him a long time ago. I see where you're going, but I don't know. So you brought up, you sent me an article this week that I was just annoyed and aggravated.
Which one? I sent you a couple that annoyed me.
The DOJ letter to schools.
Okay. So the Department of Justice, in their infinite wisdom, sent a letter out, and we have the letter. You can actually get it at www.justice.gov/about/edu.
If you just Google.
I'm going to backslash again. Hang on. /documents. One more. /DCL.pdf. Or just Google the letter.
You're such an a-hole. I'm telling you. I don't even know how I sit here some weeks.
You will get the letter dated January 8th, 2014, from the U.S. Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division, and they wrote it together, very nice, U.S. Department of Education, Office for Civil Rights.
Okay.
And this letter is very interesting. First of all, the cover page, notice of language assistance, which is awesome, is in like 27 different languages.
Well,
and we
goodness,
pay for that.
I've been practicing on my Swahili.
Right? No, I'm not. Hang on. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
We get the point.
7 different languages, and some of them I can't even understand, like how they get the typewriter to do those.
I don't think they used a typewriter.
Yeah.
So what does the letter say?
It's long. Read it.
How about a summary?
If you're our listeners, read it. Okay, so basically, essentially what it does is they advocate a quota system for punishing school kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the quota system is based on race.
What?
You can't do that. So what they basically say in the memo is they urge schools to get rid of the so-called zero tolerance policies.
Thank goodness.
The reason they say that is because minority students are disproportionately affected, they say.
Oh, no.
And according to the letter, schools violate federal law when they even-handedly implement facially neutral policies and practices that, although not adopted with the intent to discriminate, nonetheless have an unjustified effect of discriminating against students on the basis of race. So basically, essentially, if you have a school and it receives public funding and you suspend 2 black students, 2 Hispanic students, then you have to suspend 2 white students. Or if you suspend 1 white student, but 2 black students and 2 whatever students, then clearly you are discriminating because you have to punish the same number of students. Yeah, that's the look I had. Read the letter.
Cog in the chat room had a good point. Zero tolerance was their idea first. Now zero tolerance.
No, it wasn't.
Permissible.
Zero tolerance for white people was their idea.
So essentially what this says is despite whatever happens, so we've gone from a system where it used to be, when I was growing up, and maybe it was weird where I was, 2 kids get into a fight, the teacher or the principal asks a few questions. Usually it's the kid that causes the fight if it's not mutual.
Used to
got
get in
suspended.
trouble. Yeah.
Then they went to zero tolerance,
Right.
which is it doesn't matter if you ran away and you were caught in a corner, the kid catches up to you and beats you, you both get suspended, and you'll probably lose any sort of money that you would get for college through scholarships or whatever because you were a victim. Which, by the way, are the worst. I'm glad they're getting away from that at least, because it is completely insane to me that if we are preparing children for school, for life in school, that's their job, is to prepare children to go out into the real world and be productive members of society, that there is a standard that says if you were a victim of a crime, you will receive the same punishment as the perpetrator.
Well, not only that, but you should
always
be a victim, because if you fight back and defend yourself, which is a basic fundamental right, and I'm pretty sure the U.S. Supreme Court talked about that in their Heller decision.
Yes.
But we're not going to afford you that right.
That is insane. That's essentially saying kids have no rights.
Right.
That the Constitution does not apply to them.
Right.
So
I want to see that case. I want to see that case brought before
I would
the
love
court.
to see that
because
case brought.
Students have won. ACLU has fought for students, right? With the ACLU, I believe, has even fought for kids to wear NRA shirts. Believe it or not. But that's been upheld as a First Amendment issue for kids, and so the Constitution does apply to children. Mm-hmm. So I want to see somebody sue the schools for suspending their kid for self-defense, which is a constitutionally protected
absolutely
right, according to the U.S. Supreme Court.
And listen, if you're in a private school, it's almost like when you're, if you're in a private pageant or something like that, the rules are a little bit different because you agree to them going in. if you were in a public school, your tax dollars pay, why do children not have the same rights as adults? Because if somebody walked in here right now and punched me in the face, and it's on video, and the police get here, and I say I want him to go to jail, he punched me in the face. That person would go to jail, essentially. Now, there's no video. Okay, well, they can argue over whatever. I have no witnesses. It's just he and I. It's my word against his. Essentially, what this does is that guy comes in, punches me in the face. We both go to jail as a result of his action. That's what these schools are now teaching kids.
Yes.
You know what that is? That's the collectivism.
Crap.
That's that collectivism.
It's crap.
Yeah. So
it's
now
freaking crap.
But now we're going to change it.
No, we have to have victims, because if we have victims, then we can go ahead and impose our will upon them, and they won't know or think it proper to fight back.
Right. Absolutely. So now, though, we're going to change it to the new Department of Justice and Department of Ed way of, all right, so Kid A punches Kid B, and they're both black students, and they both get suspended under zero tolerance, which will stay in effect. That part will stay in effect.
Well, listen, you can't necessarily do that, because that's kind of what this letter is saying. These zero tolerance policies are, you really got to.
Right, so they're both going to get suspended.
No, you can't do that because they're black.
But now, two white kids get into a verbal argument that doesn't meet the grounds for suspension in that school.
Yes, it does, because they have to suspend two white kids now.
Exactly, and that's what the problem is. Or two.
Now,
Asian
what happens?
Kids,
what happens?
Hispanic
What
kids.
happens? No. Persons of color is what the article says, or what the letter says specifically. So it would still apply to them. But what happens if you suspend 4 white kids? Do you now have to suspend 4 students of color?
No, it doesn't go that way.
Whoa! But it has to, right? Because otherwise, that would be.
Have you ever seen the end of Ghostbusters where they don't think the door swings both ways? That's where we're at right now. It should swing both ways.
It doesn't swing both ways.
But it's not going to swing both ways. This is the problem with having a federalized Department of Education and a Department of Justice with a civil rights division that is so out of control, and now we're going to put that knucklehead who defended the cop killer in charge of the civil rights division of folks, and it's going to happen more than likely. And then we get crap like this. First of all,
well, this covers school cops also.
Really?
Well, according to the letter, quote, these statutes cover school officials and everyone school officials exercise some control over, whether through contract or other arrangement, including school resource officers.
That's really interesting.
So let me get this straight.
Does he now have to apply that law? Do you remember when everyone?
This isn't the law, right?
Well, no. This is
so what
true.
they're saying is the titles 4 and 6 that protect students from discrimination. They're saying that responding to misconduct, these titles require that the response be taken in a racially non-discriminatory manner, which I'm okay with.
Yes.
Right?
On the face,
that
seems perfect.
But what they're saying is
judging that by looking at it.
Right. But now they're saying, so these statutes cover school officials and everyone school officials exercise some control over, whether through contract or other arrangement, including school resource officers. So as a parent, is it fair to say the school exercises some control over the parents also, and the fact that the students, the children of the parent is in that school is through as part of an other arrangement, which is very open-ended.
Yes.
And the schools do have certain authorities and responsibilities over parents.
Well,
correct?
And it also goes off school property, because now it extends to a school bus.
Which is a bunch of crap.
Which is.
Right?
It also extends to the bus stop.
Right. So, and we've talked about that. So now, are you telling me that as a parent, this somehow statute is related to me because my kid goes to school?
Yeah, it does.
So I encourage all of our listeners to read this in its entirety and really kind of read between the lines of it and what it's saying. And that's just one small detail that I found interesting, is that, well, this applies to everyone. The school exercises if there's any kind of
school event, school field trip, school anything,
to whatever. But that would extend to us, right? That would extend to parents.
Absolutely.
That would extend to guardians.
And then they can't figure out why more and more people are homeschooling.
Right.
Like, it's beyond them. Liberals are almost freaking out.
Yeah.
Parents at homeschool, especially conservative parents. If they're liberal, hippie, Bay Area parents, where they're sitting around their Birkenstocks teaching their kids how to roll a joint and duck the man, that's okay. That's
listen. That's horticulture,
right?
And yeah.
But if you want to homeschool, the media is going nuts about it. The government is against it. I mean, all this stuff. They're really starting to clamp down harder and harder on what you need to do if you homeschool, and really, they're trying to find a way to get into your home to be more involved in that homeschool.
Yep. But
this is why parents are pulling their kids from public school. They're going to charter school, private school, whatever they can, things that don't get that Department of Education overwatch, because the Department of Education is getting blown out more and more, just like our bloated government, well beyond control. It isn't an overreach. This is the same thing as the EPAs we're going to talk about after the next break. It is the same thing as the EPA starting all these ridiculous rules that should require Congress to pass as laws, but they make them these bylaws and these, A, B, and C law for this, a rule, sorry, I can't call it a law, that choke and strangle businesses out of existence. And what the EPA has done, look at what they've done to oil companies and cars. Mm-hmm. They've pushed everyone to green. They've done everything they can to push everybody to green, which, by the way, cost us $115 billion of taxpayers' money that this president wasted, and away from oil, and now I don't want to get into that because that's the EPA in the next segment. But this is what happens when government is out of control and you have all these big, bloated federal government agencies, these three-letter agencies, the ABC agencies, whatever you want to call it, that are coming in and now telling individual schools how to deal with discipline. That is the most insane thing in the world, that two students in a fight in Idaho will now be judged based on a ruling that came out of the Department of Education.
This isn't even a rule. This is a letter. What I like the phrase here, I'm quoting again, absent direct evidence of intentional discrimination based on race. Okay, so you have no evidence of intentional discrimination is what you're saying. The department examined the circumstantial evidence to evaluate whether discrimination has occurred. Huh?
In other words, the DOJ is going to come in and decide whether or not it was racially motivated.
Right. Absent direct evidence. Well, if you're absent direct evidence, then what the hell are you going to look at? What are you going to do? Are you going to go in there and conduct interviews and interrogate everybody in the school?
The highest law enforcement body in the land,
right,
was involved in writing that.
There's a freaking flow chart attached to this document. I'm not kidding. It's illustration 1. Different treatment flow chart. I can't make this up.
I know you can't make it up.
I could, but people would think it was ridiculous. They would look at it as a ridiculous work of fiction.
It is a ridiculous work of fiction. I think back. I remember I was in middle school. I think it was. I had a fight, and it was a mutual thing. We both did our in-house. We didn't get sent home. We did in-house suspension for 3 days, which was you sat in a room with no windows, one door, a teacher, books. You studied for 4 hours, and the other 4 hours you went out and you cleaned.
Uh-huh.
You mopped. You did whatever. Amazingly, me and the kid that I had a fight with, I couldn't even tell you why we had a fight, ended up becoming almost best friends over that 3-day period because we realized how ridiculous he was. But that is a form of punishment that worked. We didn't get to A, miss school.
Right.
And B, we were locked in a prison, and then we were finding it out into the yard, quote unquote. We were doing manual labor. Guess what we never wanted to do again? Fight. Last thing I want to do is sweep halls, and I make that mess. I don't want to clean it up.
I have to read an example that's provided in this ridiculous document. So, example number 2: a district's code of conduct specifies 3 different categories of offenses, ranging from level 1, or minor behavior offenses, to level 3, which covers the most serious conduct. The Code of Conduct gives school officials the discretion to select among a range of penalties identified for each category of offense. A complainant alleges that her 8th grade son, who is African American, Why was he born in Kenya?
I don't know.
Was referred to the office at his school and received a 1-day in-school suspension for, quote, use of profane or vulgar language. A level 1 offense during a class period. The disciplinary sanction imposed was within the permissible range for level 1 offenses. Okay. The student had no prior disciplinary incidents. Okay. A white student at the same school and with a similar disciplinary history also committed a level 1 offense, inappropriate display of affection while on the school bus. While the parent of the white student was called, the student received no additional disciplinary action, which is also within the level. Okay, so let me get this straight. One kid received an in-school suspension because he said the word, the
Whatever.
F word or whatever during a class period. Used vulgar language in the middle of class.
He was an 8th grader.
He was an 8th grader. Okay. A white student, inappropriate display of affection. So he hugged a girl on the bus and somebody didn't like it.
Right, and they called the parent.
And he called the parent. So because he hugged a girl on the bus, maybe he should get a 1-day in-class suspension.
Well, based on what we saw with the hugging of the teacher in San Francisco, that kid should be expelled, right?
Right. Now, look, I could understand if this example was a white student also used profane or vulgar language and
Make it
received a phone
exactly
call.
even.
Make it exactly even, right. You
Don't
can't
have a just because both listen.
because both are level 1 does not mean that both get the same penalty.
You open a criminal book and there's a whole bunch of misdemeanors that have different penalties.
Right. But
they're both all misdemeanors.
Right. Let's say DUI, right? Driving under the influence, drunk driving, whatever it is. It's a misdemeanor in California. You get up to 1 year in the jail. What do most people get? Right? Time served for maybe a couple days, first offense, whatever. What do you get if it's theft, which is a misdemeanor, right? Or possession of whatever. Name another misdemeanor. I don't know. But there you get sentences of 30 days,
right?
60 days. Sexual battery, maybe a misdemeanor, right? So, I mean, that's not what your case was for. So you had like an Energizer with a penis drawn on or something, you know, sexual battery. But so they're not equal, even though they're both misdemeanors. They're not equal, or they're both felonies.
But they're framing that as equal in an effort to show that there's discrimination.
Right, and that's kind of the ridiculousness of
Absolutely.
this, right? So we have
every case is individual.
So we'll give another example. It's a felony to possess cocaine. So it's your first offense, you possess cocaine. It's a felony. It's your first offense, you raped a woman. It's a felony.
Two totally different things.
Two totally different. So according to this document, a felony is a felony. If one felon it's a level 3 offense, right, and he got 8 years, well, then the other felon, level 3 offense, he should also get 8 years. It's a felony,
for
right?
embezzlement.
Right, yeah.
A blue-collar crime. 8 years, have fun.
White-collar crime.
Yeah, a white-collar crime.
I know what you meant.
All right, well, let's start building more prisons then. I think that standard should be held to everybody.
I agree then.
If you're going to hold our children to it, hold the rest of us to it. But here's the thing. They know they're not going to change you and I.
Uh-huh.
They think they can still change our children. And that is exactly what that is doing. And that is the disgusting aspect of having these out-of-control agencies making these ridiculous letters and suggestions. And the sad part is, I bet you there are schools in California that are already so happy that came out to adopt it. They just can't wait to implement that full. And that's what's scary to me. Not enough administrators are going to stand up and go, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense.
But the good thing is there are several education experts out there that are already standing up and saying, hey, whoa, this is ridiculous. You can't do this. We're up against a break right now. That was a good segment.
347-205-9399. Back in 3 here on the
We
Saturday
never
Radio
answer
Show.
that phone.
I know. Well, soccer's not here tonight.
Because we're sitting talking.
Blah, 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 blah.